If you're looking for a podcast that packs in sound property advice, as well as offering you an insight into making the world of property effective and ultimately work for you, you're in the right place. Hosted by Arsh Ellahi, the original property rebel. He's written an Amazon bestseller, created the Property Investor app, the UK's first, and is an experienced property mentor. More importantly, he talks the talk and walks the walk.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of The Property Rebel with your host Arsh Ellahi, and in today's session we're going to be talking about tax. Now, I appreciate it's not sexy, but it's definitely something that you need to know as a property investor. I'm going to be showing you how you can retain your inheritance and how you can pass it down safely. Now, before we do that, I want to remind you that this podcast is sponsored by the Property Investor app, which is the UK's first property investment platform. We showcase all kinds of deals all over the UK, whether it's a below market value deal, a rent-to-rent deal, a lease option deal. We've got them all there. Now, there are three ways to get involved. First of all, you can go to a website, which is propertyinvestораpp.co.uk. Second of all, if you've got a smartphone, go to the App Store, type in Property Investor and download it from there. And finally, I know you all have. I know you've all got WhatsApp. Go and check out our WhatsApp community channel and you'll be able to download or see all of our opportunities that we upload every day on the app right in your WhatsApp. How cool is that? I made some notes on today's session because it's not something that I'm going to be able to remember everything on. So, as a property investor, why do we do the things that we do? Now, I don't know about you, but the reason why I do it is so that I can give my children and my family a much better life. So I work and I've worked extremely hard to ensure that my children will be able to benefit from the fruits of my labor. Now, I've been speaking to a couple of tax advisors, and believe it or not, this actually came born from a post that I know, I appreciate that I've said that you shouldn't follow advice off TikTok and Facebook, but I saw a video on TikTok and it kind of concerned me a little bit. I thought I'd better run this past through my tax advisor. So the video that I saw was grandfather, father, son. The grandfather passed away. He passed the property down onto the son. The son then paid 40% inheritance tax on the actual asset. Now, as a result of that, that was all paid. That was all fine. And then a few years later, the father passed away and then passed it down to the son. And the son was then claiming that they then had to pay further 40% inheritance tax. Now, it got me concerned that because obviously that's a lot of tax to be paying on the one property where it's already been taxed previously. So I ran this past my advisor and he said there are circumstances. It's not the right story. It's not the true story. That's why I said don't take everything that you see on TikTok and Facebook and Instagram as gospel, because we weren't getting the full story. Now, I'm going to give you an example as to how we can get around this. So first thing that you want to do is take notes, because like I said, I've had to take notes from my conversation with Chris, who's my tax advisor. And if you do need tax advice and you're not 100% sure, I'm more than happy to put you in contact with my guys and you can perhaps have an initial conversation. And I'm quite happy with the fact that he said, Arsh, we've kind of already taken this into consideration when we set up your structure. So I'm really glad that we did have this conversation because it kind of put my mind at ease. So first of all, just imagine now, and this is straightforward, you've got mom, dad, and mom and dad has one son. Now, naturally, if mom and dad, let's just use this as the family home or even investment properties, mom and dad have got these properties together. And if something happens to mom or if something happens to dad, naturally, the first thing that happens is that the assets then go to the other remaining spouse. And this scenario is if dad passes away, mom will then take control of the assets. Now, that's straightforward. Everyone should know that. Now, I dug deep one step further and thought, well, okay, what will happen now? Something happens to mom. So dad's already passed away. And there are circumstances that shortly after mom passes away, and then the assets will then be transferred to the son. And let's just give you an example. If the assets are worth £1 million, ultimately what would happen is that that son would then be taxed inheritance tax on that £1 million assets. And it comes with a degree of different difficulties as well. So give you an example. So if those assets are then passed down to the son, ultimately the son can go off and sell those assets, do whatever he wants with those assets. But if that son is then married, guess what? His wife will then also become heir to those assets as well. So again, there is a degree of protection that is required. Now, I'm thinking about this from my daughter's point of view. Now, I'm sure you're all aware that I've got two very young daughters at the time of recording. They're 12 and 10 years old. Now, if something were to happen to me and something were to happen to my wife, they would inherit quite a lot of assets and to quite a large value. The last thing that I want to do is to burden my children with a load of liabilities, or let's call it issues, because they won't know about inheritance tax. They won't know about all the things that you're going to have to worry about. What Chris said to me, who's my advisor, he goes, we've already got a deed of variation in place for you and your wife. So should anything happen to either of you or both of you, all your assets then go into what is considered a trust. Now, that trust your children can have access to, which means that they don't own the trust. The trust is managed by external third party, but the trust they will still have control over the trust, but they can't physically go off and sell everything, or you can put a level of degree of control within the trust. So for argument's sake, in our trust, they have to be over a certain age before they can sell the assets. And if they want to sell the assets, they have to also declare to the trust why they're selling the assets. And more importantly, as it's part of the trust, their lifetime partners in the future won't have access to the trust. I say this in the nicest possible way, and I really hope that my daughters at some point in the future will find a person that they will love and want to get married to. Naturally, as a father, everyone wants their children to have children so that we can become grandparents. That's the soppy side of me out of the way, by the way. But if they marry someone and it doesn't go as expected, the last thing that we would want as parents is for all of our hard work then to go off and start getting split through a very messy divorce. I'm sure you can all agree with this. So by putting it into a trust and by putting a deed of variation in place and putting rules in place for that deed of variation, you can protect yourself. And more importantly, by having it in a trust, you're also protecting yourself from inheritance. Now, that money that is sat in the trust, so not only can you put assets in trust, you can also put cash and investments into a trust. So if the child wishes to, they can loan money against the trust, which means that if they were to get married and let's say their new partner, they decide to go through a divorce, they can't touch that trust because technically speaking, the trust does not belong to the son. It's managed by external party. They have rights to the trust, but they don't own the trust. So it's really important that you get this, because it really, honestly, when I saw the TikTok video, I thought, oh, okay, I need to get some advice on this. I just want to check for my own peace of mind. I'm glad that I did, because I wanted to make sure that if something were to happen to me, to my wife, that my children are protected. More important, not just from other people and other sharks, shall I say, but more so from the inheritance tax point of view, so that they can benefit from the hard work that we've done, and then not just consistently losing out on tax by paying it again and again and again. And again, because we've got the trust, we've got the advisors that will be able to advise them through any process during any difficult times. And that for me gives me a level of comfort knowing that they will be protected. Naturally, there's a cost for that advice, but that again will come out the proceeds of the trust. And again, all the hourly rates and stuff have already been agreed. So again, something that you probably want to sit down with an advisor. And if you're thinking about, whether you set up a will, whether you've set up a trust, whether you've set up an inheritance plan, now's the perfect time to do it. Because believe it or not, there's no perfect time, but just do it as soon as you can, because it will take time to set up. It's probably going to spend a cost a bit of money to set up. You're probably going to have to do a bit of restructuring as well. But if you do it and you do it correctly, you are saving yourself for the future. So I really hope that you've enjoyed that, guys. Like I said, it's not sexy, but it's something that you all must do as property investors to protect, because otherwise everything that you work for will literally just be paid back in tax, and it will deplete at such a rapid rate that, guess what? The only person that wins is the state. And I'm sure that as property investors, you've done this to build a legacy for your children and their future. So make sure that you protect it for them. So I really hope that you've enjoyed that, guys. Like I said, This podcast is sponsored by the Property Investor app, which is the UK's first property investment platform. Lots of ways to go and check it out. You can either go to a website, which is propertyinvestораpp.co.uk. You can, if you've got a smartphone, go and check out the app on the App Store. And finally, I know you've got WhatsApp. Everyone's got WhatsApp. Go and check it out. On the communities channel, go and check out the Property Investor app communities channel and join so that you can see all the deals that we're pushing out there daily. So as always, feel free to join me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all under the handle of Arsh Ellahi, and our YouTube channel under the handle of Arsh Ellahi. And I look forward to speaking to you all very soon. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of The Property Rebel. Want to keep learning? Check out the other episodes on YouTube and dive deeper into the world of property investing with Arsh Ellahi.